And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. I am here, as per usual, to cover the Rowdies. That's what we do. You already know that. That's why you're here, just as I am here tonight with my co-host, Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos?
James, I watched our little Euro semifinal this afternoon. It was a decent game. Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to score in the Euros. That was pretty fun to watch.
Sure was.
I'm going to watch Argentina probably blow out Canada in just under 2 hours.
Probably.
And I can't complain, James. I wish it was Ecuador blowing out Canada this evening. Very easily could have been, but you know what? I can save that rant for another day. That was a sad game, man. I'll tell you what. Nobody gave us a shot. Kevin Rodriguez stopped a shine equalizer. We missed a penalty. We missed like an open goal right after that. God, it could have Ecuador. Like, I'm not disrespecting Canada because I think Canada's a great team and Jesse Marsh is a great coach. I think kind of a hot take apparently these days, but like Ecuador would have beat Canada, James. We would have been in our first ever final. Oh my God, whatever. Besides that, I'm doing well. This Rowdies result this weekend didn't make things particularly happy for me either, but we'll talk about that just a little bit. We're live. It's a Tuesday night. It's a nice night outside. I'm going to try and squeeze in a gym session right before this Canada-Argentina game. James, how are you doing over there? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, not too much. I also watched that game. Very happy to see Lamine Yamal's goal. That was very nice. And everyone who is listening, yeah, it was. Everyone who is listening, if you are listening live, hopefully you watched it too. If you are listening tomorrow, just go back and watch the highlights again. I'm going to do that as soon as we're done recording. But we do need to talk about something other than Spain and Lamine Yamal and his fantastic goal today. For whatever reason, I guess we have to talk about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We need to look into those contracts we signed with Eureka again, Carlos. I don't know if there's any Lamine Yamal clause, but we need to add one for the next time that we
had a contract. It was the first I'm hearing of this.
Okay, well, we'll keep that on the down low. So we'll just move on then. But this past weekend, the Rowdies drew away 1-1 to Detroit City with a very late stoppage time goal. Otherwise, it could have been even worse than this, and we would not be here quite as happy as we are, which is still medium happy probably. But in our own standings, I was the only one who got a point because, as everyone listening knows, I am the soccer predicting expert, and that's why I am on the lowest number. But that number just went up by 1 point in our own prediction standing. So good job, me. We do have another chance to go over, obviously, predictions, make some, and maybe even rack up some more points this weekend because we have to preview a game at home versus Orange County. It is our first game in a while. So First of all, make sure you're there. Second of all, please also listen to our preview with special guest Orange and Black Soccer Cast. They cover Orange County. They had me on last night, and we are including the preview in this feed. So you will hear that later on, or if you are listening to this tomorrow as opposed to live, then you will just continue to hear it as part of your episode. Additionally, the Rowdies have sold Zach Harivo to Rhode Island. He is out and up in the Northeast where he's actually from originally. But Carlos, we will hit back on that later on in the show because we need to get through the other things before we do that. And before we do anything else, please, of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube, any major podcast platform. And if you can, follow RBLR Sports on social media, wherever you are, at RBLR Sports. We are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads. Blue Sky, that one, all those kinds of things. So
all of them.
Let's get into it now, Carlos. Let's do the quick recap.
James, nothing unusual in your starting lineup. It was Jordan Farr still in goal. By the way, I love the little goalkeeper union video the Rowdies put out on Twitter. Thought that was cute. Good spirits in between everybody. But Jordan Farr is still the clear starter for this team. Guillen, Kleeman, and Doherty were in front of him, with Monjoma and Yangabira playing that wing back spots. Again, nothing too surprising moving forward. It was Hilton, Crisostoma in between them. You had Perez, Jennings, and Arteaga in your attacking roles up top. Nothing crazy there, kind of the usual at this point. It was a pretty bland first half, James. Rowdies had a decent amount of possession. The numbers on FOTMob seemed to be kind of deceiving. I thought it felt like we had so much more possession than just the 53%. The stats say it felt like we had a lot of time on the ball.
Yeah.
A couple decent opportunities in the first half. FOTMob says we had 4 big chances throughout the game, which I think is a little bit generous, but there are plenty of decent chances for sure.
Yeah.
And a couple of those certainly in the first half. It was a Jennings opportunity that just went wide, and Arteaga missile of a shot from just outside the box that went just over the box or over the goal. Sorry, lovely, lovely shot that had some incredible dip to it. I thought it was going in off the first look, but an incredible shot there. Sadly, almost goals doesn't really count as goals. It was still 0-0 at the end of the first half. At some point in the first half, Diop picked up a yellow card. And coming into the second half, he picked up his second yellow off of a really stupid foul to commit on a yellow. After a play was over, he got up and just bodied Hilton. Hilton totally sold it. He was a fantastic veteran player and knows how to take advantage of someone who's a bit hot in the head right now. Rowdies go up, or I guess Detroit goes down a player with just over 30 minutes to play. And still not a lot going for either team. A lot of possession for the Rowdies. Plenty of shots, plenty of low-quality shots. And it would be Detroit City that actually got the first goal. Stop me if you've heard this. Elvis Amo scored against the Rowdies in a time in the game where his team actually should have no business being in the game still. This is something I shouted out about him when I previewed the game last week, James. Elvis Amo scored on us when he was playing with Hartford in a game that we should have blown Hartford out by like 3 goals, if you remember that one at Al Lang Stadium. He came in, and literally 3 minutes later, Detroit takes the lead. And we're scrapping to get back into it. Again, up a man for like the last 20 or so minutes after that. Luckily, it was Nick Moon who gets a goal off the bench. He comes in and scores a nice goal off of a corner. And the Rowdies tied up 1-1. And that's your game, James. Plenty of possession, plenty of opportunities, plenty of decent looks for the Rowdies, especially after going up a player with just over 30 minutes to play. Sadly, we needed a stoppage time equalizer to get out of there with a point. I'll tell you what, I'm still a little satisfied with that. I was getting really annoyed by some of the Detroit City players, and I was happy that we could at least rob them of some of their temporary joy. So thank you, Nick Moon, for that. Maxi Rodriguez, Guillen owns you, you fraud. Good Lord, this guy was so annoying on the night, but whatever. Anyway, James, before I keep complaining about Maxi Rodriguez, let me run through the standings really quickly around the league before we jump into this game. Around the league, San Antonio beat Phoenix. Oakland beat Louisville City. That was a big one. And OC smacked Memphis around. It's a bad look coming into this weekend against a team that looks like they're in pretty decent form. We'll save it for then, for the preview. Okay. In the Eastern Conference, the gap between Louisville City and us, James, it's kind of going up. It's increasing. I don't know. First place seems a little bit out of reach, but Louisville stays on top with 38 points, 2 ahead of Charleston. Indy has 30 points and 1 game in hand on them, and we have 29 points. We're sitting in 4th place. Detroit City still is 2 points behind us with those 2 games in hand that we talked about a lot going into this week. At least they didn't get the full 3 points. That could have put us in big, big trouble there. Yeah. But again, they still have those 2 games in hand, so keep that in mind. Miami FC still in single digits in the points department, 8 points, lost to North Carolina FC. I love how this has become like a weekly Miami FC check-in, by the way. Just saying they did. They lost 4-1 to North Carolina FC, who is also not particularly great. In the Western Conference, New Mexico has 34 points, 5 points out of Oakland Roots. And Sacramento has 28 points, 1 point behind the Roots. And just one ahead of Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs, by the way, you guys remember at the beginning of the year, they were off to like that 8-game winless streak. After that, they've been in crazy form. They won 1-0 this past game against FC Tulsa, and they're keeping up a really, really good run in this latter part of this first half of the year. So they're doing great. That's a fun team to watch. And I partially say that because one of my friends from Georgetown is on that team, and he's doing really well over there. And Juan Tejada plays there. So Juan Tejada, Aiden Rocha, a great duo on that team. There we are, James. that's this league right now. I mean, it's kind of chaotic. There's good stuff going on. There's a lot of movement. The Western Conference is particularly chaotic. It's always
Yes, it is.
more open over there, I think. The Eastern Conference hasn't moved much actually in the last few weeks. Between first and fifth place, it's kind of been the same for a couple weeks now. Miami hasn't been out of last place in a very long time. And El Paso in the Western Conference, similar situation for them. Okay, those are all the bad teams. If you felt bad this weekend, just be thankful that you're not Miami FC or El Paso. I feel like things could be a lot worse. So take that with a grain of salt. FC Tulsa is not living up to their expectations at all, which is so sad because one of my boys plays for them. I think they had a really good looking team with Goodrum and Stojanovic and whatever. So all things considered, nothing going as bad as it could be for the Rowdies. But we would like it to be better, James. We would like it to be better. And let's talk about that. Another game on the road, another game that we nearly lost, another game that we had, chunk of possession, decent amount of opportunities, weren't really able to put this team away. Now, Detroit City is a good team, so it's not like it's a team we played down to their level or anything. It's not one of those games we can talk about. We can just say mentally we weren't there. But we still didn't get the result in the game where it felt like we should have, especially after the red card. So, James, what do you think about this game? Let's just jump into like that first half too, because it felt kind of bland. It felt kind of slow. It felt like we had the only opportunities of the half. And I went and like fact checked myself earlier and saw if the highlights had any Detroit City chances. And they really didn't. It was kind of just Rowdy's opportunities. Nothing like blatantly like this absolutely should have been a goal, but opportunities, spaces, good looks for RTL, again for Jennings, and nothing really falling our way. Can you see this game kind of like open up? What did we see here?
Yeah, well, I would also agree with you that I don't think that this was the same type of game that we have seen in the last couple of instances where the Rowdies have played on turf, especially in those games. Hartford, Loudoun, and Oakland was the other one. We saw that the Rowdies were playing a lot more slowly with a lot less intensity. I think a lot less speed and a lot less intentionality. All those fun words that really just generally mean that you are zoned in and you have some focus and everything. But it was not like that this one, but it was definitely a game where it was very difficult for us to break down what Detroit City had. Detroit City came into this game knowing that they were probably going to have to, ultimately in the end, concede possession. Although, as you said, it felt like a lot more than it actually turned out to be. For whatever reason, Detroit City was actually able to hang on to it for a bit more than I expected. But regardless, they knew that they were probably going to come in and cede possession. They knew that they were probably going to come in and cede chances. They just wanted to limit those as much as they could, and they wanted to defend the Rowdies as stoutly as they could. We know going in, Detroit City is a defensively strong team. They are able to kind of just hang on for a while in that sense and kind of keep several players in front of their own net and clog up all of those channels. So the Rowdies were not able to do as much creation the way that we would probably expect them to, and that's with the ball, breaking players down on the wing and with overlaps, the way that we saw a lot in, I guess, probably would have been April and May. May was that pretty good month. So that was a lot of play down the right wing where Danny Crisostomo would combine with Cal Jennings and whoever was on the wing. I think frequently then it was Eddie Manjoma. Now, obviously, it's Pacific Nyongabire. And on the left previously, it was Blake Bodley, Josh Perez, and Aaron Guillen. Now, a couple of those have changed as well, although Josh Perez has still been making a lot of appearances. So, drawing Detroit City out so that we could get into some areas where we could actually create some possession and create those numbers overloads really didn't work a great deal in this one. And Detroit City was able to just sit back, like I said, and then they were able to break on the counter most frequently. I noticed that when I was watching the game, but as I always do, I checked my handy notebook here, which is the cheat sheet that is John Morrissey at USL Tactics.
Love him.
He pointed this out, which like I said, I had noticed this, but I did not have any sense of exactly how much it was.
Yeah.
So he's describing Detroit City here. Both moves are defined by a sense of verticality, and Detroit played almost a quarter of their passes long even before the red card. So that kind of sums it up. There you go. They were definitely ready to try and beat us with speed on the counter after defending us for several moments, and doing so pretty well. It didn't quite work out that way because of the red card and because of the way that they scored. We'll get to that a little bit more in the second half, but we just had a lot of trouble breaking them down. And ultimately, the way that we got our best chances, those ones that you were referring to, those came from us being able to then also kind of break in transition and go at Detroit City with speed. We had taken the ball off of them. I think that one that we got off to Manuel Arteaga around the 30th minute, if I'm mixing it up with the other Manuel Arteaga shot. But either way, they came from most of the time when we were able to steal the ball off of a Detroit player in a good position, turn around really quickly, and then get it up towards their box for a shot. But yeah, not the patterns of play that we're used to, not the possession that we want to see to try and create numbers for the most part. And again, that all comes down to Detroit just being very good at what they do.
They were really solid. And yeah, you're right. The Arteaga chance in the 30th minute was when we kind of slipped him through the Detroit back line. It was a really, really tough angle on
Yes.
Steinwasser.
Yeah.
The ball was a bit long, so by the time he reaches that ball, I mean, there's no a half decent goalie in the USL is going to make that save. But it was a decent look. It was our first look of the game. That at least according to the highlights I've pulled up right here in another tab, just looking back at that play. Yeah, we had that free kick like 10 minutes after that. Nothing really crazy there. And then right before the end of the half was that crazy Arteaga shot that I mentioned earlier. Just some insane dip to that shot. Went right over the crossbar. Those were our chances in the first half that CBS Sports Goal Lasso highlighted on their YouTube. Went into halftime, was slow after that. I thought it was kind of funny. We had that little throw in right before halftime. I don't know if you recall that. And then whoever it was threw it in. It was Guillen that threw the ball in. And while the ball's in the air, the ref calls halftime, and Arteaga's like, this is one thing Arteaga, it seems like he struggled with a couple times this year. It was getting really dumb yellow cards. And this was one of. I mean, it was stupid from the ref. Like truly, it was. We were in the 3 minutes, but he threw the ball. The ball's in the air, and while it's in the air, he blows the whistle as it's coming down into the box. And Arteaga's losing his mind on the ref. That was probably the most entertaining part of that first half, which was right after the first half.
I had actually forgotten that, but yeah, that was quite the silly little play.
Yeah, and again, we saw what happened with Diop, right? Where one of these dumb yellow cards can come back and haunt you later on if you make another mistake. Arteaga doesn't seem to be a particularly hot-headed player, but he had that red card towards the end of the game in the Birmingham Open Cup game was the one I'm recalling. And so not like there's been a ton of instances of this, but from just mouthing off to the ref, right? Just happened one more time in this game. So luckily it didn't come back to bite us in the butt in this one, but just kind of a somewhat notable tidbit here. It seemed like the Detroit commentators were enjoying that. I remember they're kind of laughing a bit. It was just like a minute after the end of the half that the ref gives him a yellow card, and everybody's like confused what the hell this game was over. But yeah, James, that was the first half. I mean, just not much going on for either team there. I guess the Rowdies had the chances. Like I said, they weren't great, like high XG looks. I love XG. It's such a fun stat to say. Not like high percentage opportunities, right? But certainly opportunities. And, maybe a slightly better pass or a slightly better finish, and you have a goal up 1-0 or whatever in that half. Detroit had nothing going for them in that first half. They didn't really have anything going for them in the second half either, honestly. I thought our at least our game plan from the midfield back was solid enough. There was nothing crazy that we let them do. They didn't have any particularly dangerous opportunities that I'm recalling. In fact, I mean, I think the only opportunity I can think of other than the goal itself was after they got a red card. So, I mean, that's a good takeaway from this game. Detroit City, I mean, we know we talked about them as like a really defensively stout team. We didn't talk a ton about their attack, but they certainly have an impressive offensive unit. They're scoring a decent amount of goals coming into this game. When I previewed this game last week with Garrett from Detroit as well, he talked a lot about some of their attacking pieces, some of the guys that could be dangerous for them. And obviously, one of them has been Maxi Rodriguez for them. He's been a leading scorer for them this year. Let me fact check myself. He has 7 goals in their 14 games, in his 14 games. But I mean, he was entirely shut down. Anytime they brought the ball up, Guillen had a fantastic game. Doherty had a great game. Kleeman had a great game too in that back line. And I'm always a little bit concerned with Kleeman just because I feel like he's obviously a big guy, slightly slower because of his size, but he kept up really well with this game. Not a ton of mistakes from him, unless you want to talk about the Detroit goal itself, in which case we'll get there in a second. But I think that's like a really weird situation. Like the goal itself was wacky. Like other than that, I mean, maybe a lapse of judgment from Jordan Farr for coming out from that far, like on the goal. I don't know, but goal aside, like they didn't have a ton of work to do, but I think that's because, or at least it doesn't show up in the stat sheet. But I think it's because they were shutting him down pretty well. That includes Hilton playing a good game in the midfield, Crisostoma playing a decent game, kind of shutting down the passing lanes in the middle of the field. I was pretty happy to see that. It was like it was a low stress game. It felt like for a lot of the game in terms of like Detroit chances until they put away one of their stupid chances.
Right.
No. Good Lord. I put that tweet out. I mean, I couldn't believe my eyes. Like I was joking about that going into this game. And I was like, yeah, I remember I have that goal he scored against the Rowdies for Hartford. So like clearly like blazed into my mind. It was an insane shot 1-on-1. I was like, this guy's on Detroit, like keep an eye on him, like, jokingly. And then he comes in and scores that goal. Which let me just talk about that real quick, James. Like, stupid goal. Was it a free kick or it was a free kick for Detroit in the 70th minute. Ball gets whipped in there. There's not really anything particularly dangerous looking about that service he puts in there. In fact, the only guy remotely close to the ball is Elvis Amo. When the ball gets kind of redirected into the box, there's not another Detroit City player within 20 feet of him. It's just him. And then it's Kleeman and Jordan Farr, and they're sandwiched around him. And somehow he just dogs it out and gets his head on the ball before Jordan Farr can like have that in his hands. Like Jordan Farr, it looks like Jordan Farr's hands are on the ball. Like he has contact on the ball. And Elvis Amo just dogs it out and just heads the ball over him. Slowly, very gently trickles into the goal behind Jordan Farr. It was so infuriating. Honestly, I don't know enough about good goalkeeping to figure out like whose fault that was, James. But it was a really, really dumb goal to let up, especially up a man, especially in a game where you should have put away at least 1 or 2 opportunities by now.
Right.
Did you? Am I missing anything on that goal? Can you add any insight as the more tactically inclined one of this duo?
I always like when you say that because I feel like I'm getting props that I don't necessarily deserve. But I don't know. Yeah, goalkeeping is definitely different regardless. Like if you can't really describe it usually in tactics unless, I don't know, you're Spain's goalkeeper Unai Simon and the ball is at your foot most of the time that you're involved. But yeah, I don't know. It did seem like the only thing that I might say, and this is, I don't know a ton about goalkeeping rules, the do's and don'ts. That's not my area of expertise by any means. I'm 5'11", and nobody ever looked at me like I should be a goalkeeper. But
that's tall, James. Don't let anybody tell you that's not tall. Right?
Thank you. But I don't know. While we're on the topic, I don't know how tall Jordan Farr is. So. I thought I had said for a second how far Jordan Tall is, but I actually said it the right way. So yeah, if you are going to be the guy who is going to come out and either try to grab that or punch that or what have you, I mean, I don't think that he did hesitate, because we know Jordan Farr to be a very decisive goalkeeper. It's actually gotten us in trouble when he's been decisive and completely missed the ball with his feet before. But yeah, to miss it with your hands, I don't know. Maybe that just does come down to height, but I do agree that it's a miscommunication between him and Kleeman for sure. If Kleeman, it looked to me like Kleeman still, his body was at least in the way of Jordan Farr getting on the ball, right? So if he's loud enough, Kleeman should hear him and duck down, or let him be the first guy there. So I don't know. It is a little bit difficult to make that
Yeah.
determination.
It's a weird one. Like, it
Yeah.
really is a weird one because the ball was, like, at a point where it's within Jordan Farr's, like, punching distance, right? Like, he should be able to get to that ball there. But Mo is, like, if you don't know, if you don't remember what Elvis Mo looks like, he's a very imposing figure. He's a very tall forward. And he's not afraid to get into the box and just create some chaos. And in this case, it looks like he was just, he was just ready to take contact, see what happens. He just
Yep.
went for
Yep.
it because that's what they put him in to do.
Yep.
He can move really well for how tall he is. And if you're going to be by yourself as a forward down a player, that's the type of player you want in the game. Like, he's kind of like a specialist for these counterattack teams, these teams that are down a man, right? This is like the build he has in particular for like how tall he is. And that's what he did. He just went in there, just kind of saw what happened, just threw his head in there and see if he could knock a ball over. And it was a weird goal. It was a strange one. It was just strange. Like, Kleeman is sandwiched behind him, and Jordan Farr is kind of like next to him. Like, there's two Rowdies players there. One of them can use his hands, so it felt like that should have been an opportunity, or not an opportunity for Detroit. It kind of came out of nothing, and that's, I think, the most frustrating part. We had, like, a lot of possession, obviously, up a player. We're kind of passing the ball around, moving it to the wing, see if we can whip in a ball, and all of a sudden they get a free kick, and all of a sudden it finishes a chance. Totally, obviously, against the flow of the game.
Yeah.
They're down a player. Rowdies have a ton of the ball, a couple decent looks, and Detroit gets that goal. And that's, I'm honestly, like, we can get to the Nick Moon goal in a little bit here, but I'm honestly pretty impressed with the fact that we were able to still pull one back. Like, because I turned the game off. I'm like, yeah, I can't watch the last, like, 15 minutes of this. I was at the beach. I was like, I'm just gonna go get a drink at the bar. Like,
I think that's fair. You're probably,
yeah,
most of the time, you probably made the right decision there.
yeah. I when I got a drink and I went to sit down at the beach, and I was just chilling, and I got a notification. I was like, this is on brand. Like, right, I'll turn off the game, and then something good happens. But obviously, I'm glad that happened. But, like, that takes some grit. So I will say a couple takeaways here that are positive. So we're not just kind of being Debbie Downers for 30 minutes. It felt like the back line was really solid, despite, again, another little lapse in judgment for like a half second. Maybe it's goalkeeping, maybe it's Kleeman, maybe it's a little mix of both. At the end of the day, I think it was just a really good play from Elvis and Mo, to really, really, really good individual effort. Defensively in the midfield, again, another really solid game. Just no chances for Detroit at all, for a team that's, like, solid in the attack, has a really, really quality player who's in great form, like Maxi Rodriguez. No opportunities for him in this game. And then the kind of the dog mentality, the grit to be able to still come back in and, like, fight and get that point. I still think that's pretty impressive and worth giving a bit of a shout out to, because taking a goal like that down a player or up a player can take a huge, huge toll on, I think, a player's mentality on the field, especially in a place like Detroit where those fans are, like, right on top of you. I mean, they're chirping you the whole game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I would be able to not, like, lose my mind and just say something to a fan that I would regret as a player, right? Like, to be able to still lock in like that and get out of there with a point, I think good. So I'll give Nick Moon his flowers here. That's a saying, right? It was a fine goal, crazy corner kick scramble, and he just put it in the back of the net, and that was lovely. So good for him. Good for the Rowdies for keeping up the pressure. By the way, here's a fun stat. I saw this earlier, and I'm gonna forget to mention it if I don't say it now. The Rowdies had 9 corners in this one. Detroit had 1. The Rowdies had 21 shots. Detroit had 5. We had 5 shots on target. Detroit had 2, and we had 4 quote unquote big chances to Detroit's 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can imagine what their big chance was. It was that goal. Which is interesting that that's categorized as like a big chance by FOTMob, by the way. I don't know, give you some insight into how they're thinking. That being said, all in all, James, I think disappointing because we had it in our hands. It was kind of 3 points in our grasp, really. A couple decent looks in there. I don't think there's one like a couple opportunities where I could be like, we should absolutely score that one. Maybe we could have created a little bit more quality opportunities. But again, like we talked about, Detroit is a solid defensive team, and they did their job really well.
Mm-hmm.
They did it really, really well. I think they played their game plan for as much of or as little opportunity they had in the attack. I think they kind of played the game they wanted to in terms of shutting down the Rowdies' attack. And Danny Dichio is a great coach for that kind of thing. He had a great game. I think his game plan went almost. I mean, with the exception of the red card, which you can't really game plan for too much.
Yeah.
I think he played his game basically to the perfection, right? Especially like going down a player, gutting out of there with a point is solid. You have your 2 games in hand against us. I'm sure he's walking away from that one with his head pretty held high and happy with his players. Us, on the other hand, 2 points out of Detroit. They still have those 2 games in hand. They have a really, really tough stretch of games coming up with a lot of games because they have those 2 games in hand. So, take that with a grain of salt. It's not like they're going to win both of them for sure. I'm sure they're going to drop some points in there. So hopefully that helps us out a little bit. But, yeah, I think that's just kind of state of the union for Detroit right now. Interesting team. I think they're going to do pretty well. They'll get some points from those 2 games in hand. Maybe they take the lead on us with 1 win. But I wouldn't be surprised if not either, because it's a tough stretch of games. I talked about this with Garrett last week. It's a tough stretch of games, and it's a lot of games coming up for them. So keep an eye on Detroit. I think it'll obviously affect us in terms of where we are in the table. And it's just a pretty fun team to watch, too. Like, independent of when they play against the Rowdies, obviously you want the Rowdies to win. It's an interesting team to watch. So good game, Detroit, whatever. I'm sad we didn't get our 3 points because that gap with Louisville City is increasingly getting larger and larger. 9 points out right now. We do have that game in hand on them as well, so keep that in mind. A lot of soccer to be played left this year, James. Whole second half of the year coming up. We're exactly halfway through the year in terms of regular season games. So we can go on a really good run still. And maybe we don't. Maybe Louisville goes on a bad run and we kind of close the gap. Who knows? Here's my last question for you, James, before I maybe start wrapping up this part. Is this kind of becoming a concern, just playing games on the road in general? It feels like it's been a little bit since we've had, with the exception of that, notable Sacramento game, right? It feels like we've been going on the road and struggling to put together the performances we've seen when we play at home. That Louisville game was incredible, but after that Louisville game, it's been kind of shaky, right? I mean, you got that barely win in Hartford, barely got that win in Hartford. You lost 2-0 to Loudoun, tied 1-1 against Detroit in a game where you're up a player for half an hour. Do you have any concerns here? Are we a little concerned about away games in general? Is there something else to be concerned about? I'm always concerned about away games. I love playing at home. I wish we played more games at home because I love being in Al Lang. So I obviously want to be as high up as we can be in the regular season so we can have as many home games as possible. I think it's just natural that you might play better at home. But are you concerned that we're just not playing our game on the road? Or am I fear mongering here?
You're definitely not fear mongering. I think that anybody can just look at our record at home and away and see how many of those games away from home are losses or very near losses. That could have been the case for Hartford. That could have been the case for this past one versus Detroit City. There's another one that I'm blanking on, but it was very similar. And then obviously recently there were the Oakland and Loudoun games, 2 teams. Well, to be fair, Oakland is doing much better at this point than they were right before they played us because they had just sacked their coach. I guess that actually went pretty well for them, didn't it? But yeah, there is absolutely a problem with us playing away from home. And I would point it maybe a little more directly at there is a severe problem with us playing away from home on turf. So right now, the 3 teams above us in the Eastern Conference are Louisville City. They do not play on turf. If we ended up playing them in the playoffs, let's just say the season ended like it is now, and we end up ultimately playing them in the playoffs, we would have to go and play away from home at Lynn Family Stadium in Kentucky. So that one would be on regular grass. I feel like we would have, I guess, a better chance. Charleston are ahead of us. I believe that they also play on regular grass. I believe that we would probably have a better chance just there. If I'm not mistaken, though, Carlos, don't Indy 11 play on turf? Because if they do, that would be a problem. Detroit City, obviously, you've mentioned they have 2 games in hand on us. That is certainly, even if it's not 6 points they get, if they get 3 points, they would jump ahead of us. So if they get 4 points, obviously, it would be the same thing. Detroit City is another potential team that at this point we could end up behind, and we could end up going to play them in the playoffs. Again, if the table finished the way that it is today, and that's unlikely. But these are problems. These are definitely problems. And if something is not figured out by the end of the year, obviously it's going to continue to be a problem. And then if that's the way that it is going into the playoffs, I think all of us have every right to be chewing our fingernails right off of our hands to have to go away from home and play on turf. And I don't know, it's definitely harder for us to play our game the way that we want on a turf field. I'm not discounting that. Turf is worse to play on than grass, but at the same time, turf is what we have to play on in this league necessarily in a lot of different places. Ultimately, the team is aware of that. The management is aware of that. There's got to be a way to get around this, and they haven't done so yet. So, yeah, those are potential problems in our future if we cannot sort out what the hell is going on when we're away from home.
Yeah. I also don't want turf to become like the boogeyman word this year, right? Like I feel like
it shouldn't.
like it really feels honestly like like we talk about it a lot, and I feel kind of stupid saying it like over and over again. Like, oh, it's like turf. Like you got to be careful. Like it shouldn't. At the end of the day, like these are professional soccer players, right? We have a really, really great set of players, high talent, level, great quality roster, and a good coach that should be able. I mean, at the end of the day, like I feel like this group of people we have playing this game in green and gold, right? Should be able to figure this out. I don't think it should be as big a problem as it has. And honestly, I don't even know like if we can credit the turf for being, the boogeyman this year. Maybe it is just away from home in general, right? Maybe it doesn't even have to be the turf. Maybe it's just playing away. Maybe it's going, away from Howling and the comforts of being on the Bay. We certainly have a good home field advantage in Tampa Bay. Good crowd, great, not great, atmosphere for an away team with the weather and everything and the humidity. Like it's hard to complain outlaying. So it's nice to be playing at home, obviously. So let's maximize those points. The good news is we have a whole second half of the regular season, James. Tons of points to be made up here. And tons of points for Louisville and Charleston and Indy to lose. So, there's still room. There's potential. We're talking about 9 points that Louisville has on us right now. We have a game in hand, so who knows? It can happen still. It can still happen. It's not a huge swing, right? 9 points. It would be nice to kind of just get all of our games at home, right? That would dramatically change things, I think, if we can't figure out this little issue.
Yeah.
Right? That being said, I'm kind of crapping on Indy and Charleston and Louisville, and I hope they lose going forward. But shout out to Indy tonight. They're playing Atlanta United in 5 minutes in the Open Cup.
We are supporting them there. Yes.
Yeah, so I hope everything goes well there. Sacramento Republic and Seattle at 11. Sacramento hosts Seattle Sounders. Did I say Seattle Republic? I feel like I might have said that. Anyway, you get my point at 11. Keep an eye out on that. Okay, James, man of the match. Can we say we've talked about this game enough here?
I definitely think we can. For my man of the match, I will just throw it out there. Lewis Hilton, I think that he has been a deserving man of the match for a couple of games here, but this is another one in which he really stood out for his ability to control the game. I do want to highlight some real quick stats. Our accurate long balls in this game, 47%. That's not good enough. Our accurate crosses, 38%. That's not good enough. So those are where we saw the problems in terms of our conversion, in terms of our chances, not actually becoming something. Lewis Hilton, though, 67% accurate passes. You would say that's probably lower than we might be used to, but I think that that is a contributory factor to us having the success of moving the ball forward, because in this game, we really had to rely on getting it up quickly and not being able to do our usual stuff, which is the usual side-to-side possession and trying to find our wingbacks. And that's actually where Lewis Hilton even has probably his best games, but I still think that he was the best player for chance creation, even if he wasn't the one who was doing the assisting or the potential assisting. I suppose it would be the XA, the expected assists. But yeah, I still think that he had a very good game overall. And if we can get those accurate long ball numbers up, if we can get those accurate cross numbers up, maybe more of those big chances, more of those 21 shots will actually end up in the back of the net.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. As I usually do, I take the easy way in terms of selecting my man of the match. For me, it's got to be Nick Moon, right? Are you kidding me? Comes in here, scores a goal to get us out of here with a point. His first goal of the year came at a really, really nice time. And I totally forgot to mention this one. I don't know how he didn't mention his chance like 10 minutes before, or like 15 minutes before, in the 75th minute, almost immediately after he came in, he hit the post off of a free kick opportunity that was whipped into the back post. So he could have had 2 goals on this game just as easily. I mean, I totally forgot about that chance. That was one of those big chances, I'm sure, that Fought Mob threw our way. So yeah, I mean, with a little bit of luck, he scores 2 goals and our Rowdies win 2-1. But at least he got that 1 goal and we got out of there with a point.
Yeah.
Looking back at his goal, it's really funny. Lewis Hilton's setting up for a corner, and you know how Detroit has like people just standing back there, like just on the field. There's like a guy who was like upset that Lewis Hilton was like moving the little line back to like whipping across. Like he's not sitting on the field, but whatever. Point being, Nick Moon would get on the end of a shot here. He kind of like karate kicked it. It was a fun way to kick it. Yeah, it was a strange one, but I mean, hey, got the job done. Dennis whips in a shot, bounces back out to Nick Moon. He karate kicks it in, and the crowd goes incredibly mild because they were not. I think they thought they had the full points. They thought they were getting out of there with 3 points. They were shutting us down even with up a player, right? I mean, I think they felt like they had it, and Nick Moon took it away. So I think it's less so us getting a point and more so taking 2 points away from Detroit. That's the big highlight in this one. So thank you, Nick Moon, for that. Those are big points. And thank you for ruining the Detroit City fans' night on this one. I appreciate it.
And on that note, we will move on to say that, folks, it is short notice, but we have another watch party coming up. So please join us on Saturday, July 20th. Make sure you get yourself to Berry House off of the Ybor Strip. That is, again, Saturday, July 20th at 7 p.m. And that will be our next watch party. The Rowdies will be playing Indy 11, so let's cheer on the boys from their Berry House, again, off the Ybor Strip. As always, we will have specials. We will have swag giveaways, beer pitcher specials at Berry House. It is an award-winning beer. If you haven't seen our videos from there, Eureka likes to hold up some of their awards of their, just for winning how good their beer is. They get awards for that.
Gold medal.
To one of those competitions, but I feel like it would be a very fun spectator sport. In the meantime, though, you should join us there and take part. You should also bring your Rowdies gear, bring your loud voices, and we will make sure that they hear us all the way from Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. Now, James, you had a conversation with some folks over from the Enemy this weekend. Is that true?
That's true. I did. I had a conversation specifically with the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. They cover Orange County, as you might have figured out. And they are going to be on here, or we will have the video on here, to give us a little bit of input related to how Orange County will line up this game.
Got a big match coming up this weekend on the road in Tampa Bay against the Rowdies. And to help us out with that, we've got James from RBLR Sports. They cover all the sports there in Tampa. Rays, Buccaneers, Lightning, and of course, Rowdies is who we're talking about here. James, thank you for taking some time to join us on this episode.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to discuss it with you guys because as I'm sure we hear on the other way, or maybe it's just something that you guys experience, but it's difficult to watch the West Coast games, and I imagine it's probably difficult for you guys to watch the East Coast games. So I don't have all of the knowledge about the West Coast teams, and that's why I love talking to you guys when we have those games.
Now, before we get into this conversation, now that we've got Dylan here with me in this conversation, I just got to ask, do you know the celebrity that is Dylan there in Tampa Bay when Orange County was out there a couple seasons back winning the championship? If you don't know, I wish we had the video to show you. He was shirtless with a fanny pack cheering in the stands with the rest of the Orange County fans. So I'm going to introduce you to superfan Dylan here for Orange County. Dylan, I'm going to give you first shot at a question for James.
James, another Scottish manager. Maybe for those of us in Orange County who haven't been paying attention, Neil Collins left a while ago. He went to Barnsley. It didn't go as well for him. You've got Robbie Nielsen now. Is it same old 3-4-3? Is this the Tampa Bay that we can expect to just be difficult and always mount a comeback? You know, if we're up at 70 minutes, what's changed in the last 2 years?
Yeah, that's a good question because obviously there is the cultural background, but I think that for whatever reason, we have had two managers who do like to play relatively similar styles. It's not obviously exactly the same because we don't have the exact same players. So that would be a big difference here. But we do usually play with three at the back and then a very big emphasis on wing backs as well. So yeah, the wing backs are going to be very important for us, just as I'm sure it was under Neil Collins previously. Lewis Hilton is going to be taking up the same role that he was before. He was another big piece under Neil Collins. He remains that under Robbie Nielsen now. So you will see him be very important. And then the other big piece that was not there previously, who has really stepped up this year, has been Danny Crisostomo, somebody that you guys might be familiar with because he was mostly on the West Coast for his USL career. Yes, exactly. And yeah, he is kind of an all-action player at this point where he is going to try to get himself involved in helping us build up the wings with those wingbacks that I mentioned earlier. So on the right side, it has been Pacific Nyongabire, comes to us from the Canadian Premier League. And on the left side, it has been Blake Bodley. He just had an injury recently. So he's actually been replaced for, I think, the last game or two with Eddie Manjoma, another mostly West Coast player. And yeah, so that is the team that we have been building up to, mostly over those two wingback positions and then trying to create number overloads, let's say, with those players. And then if they can get the ball back into the box with Manuel Arteaga sitting there, he has been deadly for us up top. And Cal Jennings has been the other guy who's been really involved in the build-up for most of our chance creation.
I was actually going to ask about him next. So well done on segueing. Cal Jennings was a very hot commodity coming off of that 2022 season, I think. It sounds like from what you've said, he's not leading the line. Are we expecting him to drop in and let the other two kind of run past him? What is his role and you know, how is he slotted in for the Rowdies?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say he is still leading the line, so to speak. It's just a bit of a difference in terms of where he scores his goals as opposed to where Manuel Arteaga scores his goals. So those are going to be our two most dangerous players for sure up top. And Cal does like to drop in a little bit deeper so that he can build up a head of steam, kind of running at players. And that is where you will most likely see him dropping in to assist with the build-up along with the wingbacks. So he would mostly start out on the right side. The last couple of games, it was Josh Perez who was starting out on the left side in a similar role. They have been the guys who add to the numbers to try and create those number overloads that I was referring to. So, yeah, like I said, on the right, it'll probably be Chrysostomo along with Nyangabire and Cal Jennings, and then Cal Jennings. If we need this positional play, then it would be him receiving the ball, like I said, a little bit deeper. He can turn and he can just run at people because that's something that he's good enough at, that he can create chances just by doing it. On the other side, it'll be Josh Perez and I guess probably Eddie Manjoma this weekend. If not, it'll be Blake Bodley, depending on where he is in his injury comeback. And then they will try to build up those numbers where they can get it up to up the wing and then cross the ball back in where they can try to find Manuel Arteaga. So it is leading the line for both Arteaga and Jennings, but it is definitely a slightly different role for each of them. Arteaga does appear to be the guy who's going to be sitting in the box a lot more frequently. He's going to be the guy who's going to try to get on the end of crosses a lot more frequently. And Cal Jennings is someone who's going to do it all on his own if he can. Josh Perez has been the guy who will do it all on his own on the left side, but he's just a less frequent starter, I guess, probably down to the fact that he doesn't have as many goals as Cal Jennings. But to try and reach the same tally that Jennings and Arteaga has is a very tall task. So that's why they stay on the field as much as they do.
Got it. Defensively, tactically, I think the last time Orange County was a competitive team and played Tampa was, in a final.
Yeah.
And Forrest Lasso was there. It seems like Tampa's done a good job of retooling and rebuilding and getting a little bit younger. To me, that typically says, hey, if you play a direct game, it's not as much of an issue because pace isn't usually as much of an issue with younger players. What's Orange County's key to scoring a couple on Tampa? What is Tampa's biggest weakness?
Well, I would lean towards a couple of different items, I suppose. So there are a couple of things that I would say are potential issues. So one thing is quick direct play can be a problem. It's not always the biggest problem because, as you said, there have been moves to try and get a little bit younger and therefore a little bit quicker on the back line. If the Rowdies will identify that as a large potential problem, then they will try to cover for that with the little bit more speed that they can add to the back line. So usually we can prevent that if needed. But at the same time, it has been a little bit of a problem here and there. Where I would really say the Rowdies have had a lot of issues, especially lately, is off of set pieces. The other thing, any team can be caught in transition. So yeah, that quick direct play will catch us, but we have also had issues definitely with set pieces. And I don't remember exactly which game it was. I believe it was a 2-2 draw. So I would have to go back and look, but there was a 2-2 draw, if I'm not mistaken, in which both of the teams' goals were scored. I'm sorry, it was a 3-2 win for us against Louisville. It just came back to me. But the two goals that were scored against us were both off of set pieces. So there are definitely problems when it comes to that. I don't know if it's maybe the team gets a little lackadaisical and they lose their focus in between those moments where a team is lining up to actually take the free kick, the corner kick, what have you. But that has been a problem every so often. So like I said, there is a potential, though, if you have the speedy players and if you have the real quick people up top, they can still beat us and burn us that way. But I do think that another big standout would be set pieces.
Final question for you before we kind of flip things over to Ray. 4th place, 17 matches, 8 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses. Kind of a mixed bag from the outside looking in. What's the high moment and the low moment for Tampa this year?
Well, I would definitely say some of our high moments are beating New Mexico, because I know they're currently leading out in the West. Beating Sacramento in Sacramento, that was a big one. And then that one that I just referred to actually was the 3-2 win over Louisville. Those were the high moments for sure. Now, our lower moments are the exact opposite, where we go and we beat these big teams. Unfortunately, especially in the last month or so. Yeah, the last month has been pretty bad in this sense. We have had a lot of trouble beating the worst teams, the lesser teams, let's say. I shouldn't call them worst teams because any team can win on any given day. But definitely the teams that are below us in the table is where we have had the most trouble, especially away from home and on turf fields. So that doesn't bode well, I guess, in Orange County's case this week, but it has been a big issue. And those are the teams that like to sit back. They have a relatively easy time preventing us from scoring in quite a few of these games, and then they do come back and they beat us in transition. So, yeah, it is that mixed bag, just as you said. It's us trying to figure out exactly why it's been so mixed down here.
Yeah, Dylan sort of stole my question, so I have backup, which is awesome. I was just going to bring up it seems like Tampa is playing to the level of their competition this year, right? So they're, like you said, they're beating the big teams. They're struggling against the teams that are struggling in the league. People that watch any sport know that that's something that can happen. Some teams just, for whatever reason, when they're playing the good teams, yeah, let's go gung ho. When we're playing the team we think we should be, this is a piece of cake. We don't have to worry so much. So hopefully the way Orange County's been playing, I would put them more in the sort of afterthought type teams for a lot of the teams that are competing for championships. So hopefully Tampa Bay just decides this is not going to be a difficult match and they play to the level and they overlook Orange County. My question for you, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask a question or two of us. Everyone that watches the show knows how much I loved Danny Crisostomo when he was with Orange County. He was definitely one of my favorites. I bought his game worn jersey when they auctioned it off. I still have that. I just got to ask this. Are the Tampa Bay fans treating Danny with the respect that Danny deserves as a player that really gives their all for the team that they're playing for?
I think that the Tampa Bay fans have really embraced him. If I'm being honest, when he was signed over the offseason, I don't know how many of us predicted that he would be this locked-in starter that he has become, but he has really taken the team by storm. Him and the other player that I would put in this category is Josh Perez. They were players that were not necessarily the most highly regarded as we were getting into the preseason and getting ready for the first game. And since then, both of them have really taken over the chance creation for the Tampa Bay Rowdies this season. So Danny Crisostomo, I really, what I want, because his name is so long, it's always hard to fit it onto a line when I'm doing on my notes for our own podcast. But I would like for us as a fan base to come up with some type of nickname that reflects the way that he plays. And I don't know that we have done that yet, but if you guys have any suggestions, then I would also like to take those, because we could get something going there for sure. He is so hardworking, just as you said, and I personally love to see it.
And I don't want to break the hearts of Orange County fans, but I did hear rumors in the offseason that he actually was wanting to come back to Orange County. They just couldn't make it happen as far as the contract. So then he goes to Tampa Bay. And his story with you all is the same story he had here in Orange County. He didn't come in with the thought he was going to make a big impact or play a lot of minutes. And somehow, some way, he worked, got in there, and he actually made a strong contribution with his time here in Orange County. James, I want to give you an opportunity to ask a few questions or a couple questions of us if you have any. If not, no problems. But do you have any questions for Dylan and myself?
Well, I was going to turn kind of a similar way back to you guys, just that you were asking me where are the chances coming from, that kind of stuff. I have in my own notes, I have for you guys just the stat leaders, let's say, the highest goal scorer, assists, where the big chances are coming from. But I wanted to hear what you guys had in terms of how Orange County go about creating their own chances and where we need to be most fearful.
Such a difficult question to ask, because really it's been such a crazy season with injuries, players playing, not playing here and there. I don't think we definitely haven't had what was our penciled in best 11 at all this season. I guess one thing I could say before I let Dylan handle, because he's, again, the more knowledgeable person when it comes to the tactical aspects of soccer. Last week I called it out that the team wasn't giving Ethan Zubak what is needed for him to be successful. I believe in the match against Memphis, we saw some of that stuff that Ethan is able to do work with the team. So some of those placements when they're hoofing the ball up to him and he's trying to win the ball in the air because he's a taller guy, heading it to somewhere where he's anticipating a teammate should be. For most of the season, it's been nowhere, and the other team gets the ball. This last match against Memphis, they sort of are figuring it out, it seems like, at least for that match. There were multiple times where he's receiving those passes, playing that hold-up play of a big man trying to win the ball in the air, trying to put it down in a position for teammates to be successful, and it worked out. And I think that was a big reason why Orange County had such a successful match at home against Memphis. Now, can they keep that going? That's the big question. But for me, that's sort of, with the way this team is built with the injuries, that's really where you're going to get your chance creation, is if you can involve Ethan and have the teammates supporting him when he's winning those balls in the air or battling for the ball. Dylan, do you have any alternate thoughts on that?
Yeah, largely in part because we've had so many injuries in such a chaotic season that you might not ever have an idea where a goal is coming from. Bryce Jamison is a threat, and he's proved that time and again. Sometimes it's Colin Shuttler running up in the 95th minute, as Sacramento learned at the beginning of the year. It's a bit chaotic, but sometimes set pieces tend to be where we go. And a lot of that is down to the personnel who are going to be fit enough to actually appear. But when we actually have center backs playing, a lot of the times a set piece is a good way for us to pull something out of nowhere.
Gotcha. Well, that is good to know. I'm sure that our the scouting department of our club down here will obviously be keeping that in the back of their brain as they prepare for this game.
I could throw on just two other areas where that are dangerous with Orange County as far as the attack. It's our outside backs. If both of our main outside backs, Owen Lamb, Ryan Dogman, are on the pitch and playing in the position, they're creating chances for our attackers. We saw it earlier in the season before Brian Olowski gets hurt. I think Ryan had 2 or 3 really great crosses in front of goal, made it really easy for Brian Olowski to score goals. And we've seen it recently with Owen Lamb too, with some of his great crosses and creating chances for his teammates as well. I think they're really our best, I guess, assisters. Is that a word, Dylan? Dylan likes when I make up words. They're our best at creating chances from their positions. They're probably the best pair, I would say, in the league for creating chances from that position as a duo, one on the right, one on the left side. So that's another place I would say Tampa Bay fans should look. If we're succeeding there, then that's good for Orange County.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that I have any other questions for you guys, but I obviously appreciate you having me on and taking the time to talk about this game coming up here, because it's good that it's good when we can interact as USL fans. That's my outlook.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking some time to join us. James, before we let you go, share with our listeners, if they want to hear more from you or from RBLR Sports, where should they look?
Yeah, well, as you said, RBLR Sports, we're at RBLR Sports on all the social media stuff. And also, as you said, we cover not just the Rowdies, but the Rays, the Bucks, the Lightning. And now we have a show for the Tampa Bay Sun, the new women's team in the USL Super League. So I know it's very specific to the center of Florida. And if that's not necessarily what you're interested in, I understand. But I'm sure that there's other stuff that we could interest you in with other sports. And like I said, our women's team, we're covering them too. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on at RBLR. Awesome.
James, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us. And best of luck to your Rowdies the rest of the season, except for this coming weekend. We hope you stumble a little bit. But other than that, have a good rest of your season.
Naturally. Thank you. Same to you.
That was a fun one, James.
Yeah. I do like, as I said in the podcast, in their version of a podcast, I do like interacting with other people in this space, because it's just a smaller space. Obviously, it is not MLS or even MLS as opposed to the Premier League or something. So we should all be more interactive with everyone, whether it's fans and podcasts, whatever. We should definitely all be embracing each other. We are enemies only when we play each other. Otherwise, just as you and I, Carlos, we are rooting for Indy 11 tonight, and we're rooting for Sacramento tonight to beat the MLS opposition.
That's fair. I'm enemies with every team that's not the Rowdies usually, but in this case tonight, I'm rooting for Indy and Sacramento. Okay, James, that was fun. Again, if somehow you just blanked, that game is this Saturday, 7:30 at home against Orange County. Let's get some revenge at home, man. Oh my God, that final still scars me. At Link Stadium, be there. Orange County is in kind of a mixed form, James. Right now, like you said earlier, they whooped around Memphis. But other than that, it's been a kind of mixed bag in the last few games, wins, draws. It's really a mixed bag. Kind of a weird team to read, like you said or like they said in
the recording of their chat with you. Had a lot of injuries, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of moving parts, so not a lot of consistency on that front. Despite that, they're in 7th place in the West behind Memphis with 24 points from 18 games. So decent enough season, all things considered so far. Colin Shuttler will definitely be in net behind Owen Lambie, Sergio Chavez, Ashton Miles, and Ryan Dugman. Ashish Chada. I love that name. That's a sick name. In defensive midfield behind Bryce Jamison, Ben Norris, Cal Scott, and Ryan Flood. And up top, we should expect Ethan Zubak. Thomas Amang has 5 goals, while Jamison and Zubak have 4. Chada and Lambert have 3 assists each. Those two and Scott lead in big chances, and Brian Olaski has created the most chances on this team. That's a name you might remember. Yeah, James, you had a good chat with them to get the Orange County perspective, talked a little bit about who our dangerous players are, kind of how we might see this game play out. Oh, Lord, that was loud. I hate getting text notifications on my laptop. It's the worst. James, all things considered, the injuries, the mixed bag of form, they're coming off of a really good win against Memphis, like we mentioned. How do you see this game playing out? Are we feeling positive? We're feeling negative? I know you're the in-house pessimist. But I'll tell you what, I feel pretty good about this game. I feel like it's time for a bounce back. What do you see going into this one?
I am also, like you, feeling that this is a perfect game for a bounce back. We've had a rough little spell recently. The only bright light that we had in the last, month's worth of games is an away game versus Sacramento. And other than that, it's been kind of bad across the board. Let's see the hopeful turnaround that everybody knows this team is capable of. We know that there is a lot of talent. If the problem was being on the road, was playing on turf, you're not playing on the road. You're not playing on turf. You have a full-size field and a very nice surface that it hasn't even been played on in a month. So it should be even nicer than usual. Let us get out there. Let's win this game. I'm going to put my prediction out there, and I'm going to say, because I'm the pessimist, I'm going to say conservative 2-0 win.
I'll follow you up with another 2-goal win. I'm going to say we win 3-1 in this one. Orange County has always been a decent side. It seems like in this particular season, they're kind of struggling to find their form for a variety of reasons. Frankly, it doesn't really bother me that they're not finding their form. I know how to say that in like a non
A
very
diplomatic way.
yeah. So I mean, let's go. Let's take advantage of that. I think we need a bounce back win. Like you said, there's certainly, like, other than that game against Memphis, they've been struggling a bit here. They did have a win against Indy, by the way. That was Indy's first loss in that incredible streak that they had going on. That was just a few weeks ago. So that's another notable game for them. They're certainly capable of good performances. That being said, I think we get out of here with 3-1 win is my official prediction. Arteaga and Jennings are due for, a nice little 3-goal performance. Hat trick, maybe. Hat trick and score for one of them. I don't know. But yeah, Orange County has been a little bit mixed bag, and I feel like playing at home, having to come across the country for them, it's going to be difficult. Back at Al Lang, don't see why we can't put in a really, really good performance in this one, James.
Yeah, nope, I agree with that. And Eureka does as well. Our producer has put in a 3-0 win prediction. So all of us are predicting wins. If there isn't a win, then nobody gets any points, and that will be very sad for us.
You can yell at us.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, to finish it up, I do want to highlight again, it is short notice, but folks, we are having a watch party coming up on Saturday, July 20th at 7 p.m. It will be at Berry House, just like all of them are. At Berry House, we are having specials on, they're having specials. I guess we're not, but we will have a halftime swag giveaway. There will be the pregame show beforehand. You can watch that live. And of course, there are beer pitcher specials. What I was just trying to mention, award-winning beer. Please come join us and make the atmosphere just as fun in Berry House as we can make it at Al Lang. We're going to finish up with the next 2 talking points here. First, Zach Haribo. He is out the door for, I guess, some type of transfer fee. We don't know what it is, but there was definitely a fee. He, because of injuries, Carlos, I did not realize this. He had only played 7 matches in the time that he was here, and he scored once.
That
I
feels
believe
high.
against Orange County.
Orange County. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I remember that game because that was a big goal. I mean, I can't remember if it was a 1-goal win or if it was an equalizer.
I think it was an equalizer.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was a big goal. And I was like, man, this guy's going to be a big contributor for this team. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, injuries really got in the way of that, and that sucks because, as you said, he's a good player. He's an international quality, at least. He plays for Haiti when he's available, which has not been the case recently, and that's unfortunate. So, obviously, we did not get the best of Zach Harivo. I hope that Rhode Island does, other than when we play him. But all I can say is I wish him all the best, and it's truly unfortunate that things did not work out better here.
We barely knew you, friend. Hope everything goes well, man. I genuinely thought he was going to be a big piece of this team. Even this year, when after he finally figured out his injury stuff, I was like, yeah, he'll be back. Man, our lanky friend in the central midfield, no longer with us. Have fun in Rhode Island, my friend. 7 games feels high, honestly. Like, genuinely, I didn't even know it was that much. I thought it was less than that. Yeah, it's a tough time for him. I know the injury department has not been great for him. So hopefully he finds a bit of health and long-term consistency, wherever that is. Good luck to him. I wish him all the best. Great guy, man, too. Like, I've chatted with him a few times. He was so nice. Like, I really wish it would have gone better for him. And he was like really solid piece whenever he did come in. He played well enough in his 7 games. James, Euro Copa America finals this weekend. Copa America semifinal tonight. Euro final tomorrow, another Copa America semifinal tomorrow. I'm so looking forward to Uruguay versus Colombia. I adopted Uruguay as my team as soon as the U.S. was already out by the time Ecuador got eliminated. So
I'm kind of surprised you didn't want Canada to just try and knock Argentina out.
I mean, I would like that. It won't happen,
right?
I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. So to say. So whatever. I'm so terrible at like phrases, if that makes any sense. I've realized
I used whippersnappers last week, so yeah, I think you're doing better than me.
Well, all right. Point being, there's gonna be some great games coming along. I hope Uruguay wins the whole thing. I love Darwin Nunez, just such a fun guy. I love the Uruguayan team. Great country, man. I want to go to Uruguay one day.
Yeah,
it looks like such a fun place. Yeah, Euros, Lamine Yamal, fun stuff. Keep an eye on that. It should have been Ecuador, man. Ecuador should be in the final for the first time ever. But I digress.
Also, if you're in Tampa, you can go to McDinton's on Sunday for the 2 finals. I will certainly be there. That will be the place to be. But for now, I think the place to be, Carlos, is off of this stream. We have held everyone's attention for long enough. Let us let them out of here. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere at RBLR Sports. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. What about you, Carlos?
At Carlos GPA10 on Twitter. I'm tweeting Rowdies. And EA Sports College Football coming up. Oh my God, I'm so excited for that, by the way. I used to play EA NCAA 14 like all the time 10 years ago when it was out. It's the first college football video game since then. I'm so excited. Oh my God, let's go. I'm going to take USF to the national championship. Mark my words. We're going to be a powerhouse in my Xbox.
There we go. And if you want to follow that, you can do so on Twitter, I'm assuming. But if you would like to listen to our podcast, you can do that wherever you listen to podcasts. You can get the full experience on YouTube, or if you appreciate us going live, I think we are in several other places. But if you just want to listen to the podcast, that's fine too. We are on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts. Again, anywhere podcasts are sold or given away for free. That's where we are. Thank you for joining us again. And for the finally a home game this weekend at Allen Stadium, come join us. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.